On. Oh yeah, it's afternoon. It's been a long weekend. Let's be real here. Okay, the time is currently 3:04 and it is July 8th, and we are here for a work session. We do have Commissioner Sanchez online, so we do have enough to start this meeting. So if you all will stand and we'll join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Wonderful, thank you. Brandy, if we can get a roll call for determination of quorum, please.
Commissioner Reynolds? Commissioner Chaparro?
Present.
Commissioner Sanchez?
Present.
Vice Chair Murillo? Chair Shaljo Hernandez?
Here, we do have quorum. And then just really quickly, I do see that we have a lot of people in the audience today, which is always great to see. And let the record reflect that Commissioner Reynolds has joined us at 3:06 p.m. We do have an interpreter here this afternoon in the back of the building. If you do need interpretation equipment, if you will please go to the back and see her. So if anyone does need that, please go to the back. We will be trying to wrap this up by 5:00 p.m. That gives us a 2-hour window for this. I will leave the last 15 minutes open for anyone from the public that wants to address the commission on items that we are talking about. So I will cut off presentations at 4:45. We will leave that 15-minute window up for public comment before we conclude. If you have any follow-up questions, we do have our regularly scheduled BOCC meeting tomorrow at 9 o'clock, and you are more than welcome to come back and finish any thoughts during public comment tomorrow. So first off, we do have our reason for the work session, and we do have our interim county manager, Mr. Lopez. Take it away, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the Board of County Commissioners. This is a starting point, and I think it's important that we start by saying that. This is not a decision meeting. This is to really look at where we are going to be going over the next 6 months, next 6 years, next 30 years. And so we are going to be sharing a little bit of information with the board. We are hoping the board shares information with staff, and really then the work will start, where we start really going out and intentionally engaging with our residents, our businesses, into how we make the county better. We have plans. That is not where we fail. We have Vision 2040, and it has an appendix in it as well. We have Metropolitan Planning Organization plans from Mesilla Valley MPO and El Paso MPO that inform our activities. And then recently passed by the board in this past year is 2024 strategic plan, which we now have available for people to see those components online through Achieve It. We've got the plans. We've got to now start linking these plans and looking at how we invest in our services, invest in our infrastructure, so that we can carry out the various aspects of these plans. Some challenges with our plans: they're not linked necessarily in methodology or approach. Each plan took its own unique look at what we are doing, and so you can't read one and it immediately feeds to the next. That is something over the next few years we as a county will need to really work on, and it's appropriate in time because Vision 2040 was passed in 2015. We're now 9 years into the plan. It's time that we do a refresh on it, and that's going to give us that opportunity to really make all of our plans flow well together. None of the plans have an investment strategy either, only generalities. And if we're not investing capital into the things that we are trying to achieve, it's hard to get there. Hence why in 2024, 9 years after the adoption of Vision 2040, we really can't point to things on that plan as we've invested X and achieved this goal. So we really do need to have that intentional strategy for investment. And there are some contradictory things both within the plans themselves and across plans in some areas. For example, Vision 2040 has a section that says we should not extend infrastructure beyond where it is, and instead we should encourage people to go where the infrastructure exists. Now, that's not a quote, that's just paraphrasing. But then, of course, further in the plan, it says we should be looking at how we can make communities more livable. And that includes having infrastructure where people are. And the Colonias plan, well, not sure how that happened. The Colonias plan in particular says we really need to be increasing infrastructure in the Colonias. So we've got these things that exist in our plans that we have some opportunities to make improvements on. And it should be pointed out, only the most recently adopted plan by this board has any accountability measures, and that's the 2024 strategic plan. But while we call it a strategic plan, it is really looking at an 18-month to maximum 5-year window. So for some of those things, because you approved this plan 6 months, actually over 6 months ago, we're already down to the tactical time frame on some of those items. So we really do need to build for that entire long-term vision. The key issues in all of the plans, really there are 3 main driving factors. We want to increase public safety, we want to improve quality of life, and we want to increase economic development. But again, this is where it starts getting thin on the details, and we're gonna need your guidance, and we're gonna need feedback from our constituents as to what exactly that means. Is public safety including our road networks, for example? Or are they thinking more in terms of violence? Or are they thinking in terms of rapid response for EMS calls? So we really are gonna need to get what it is that people want, what people need when we say the term public safety, so that we can build towards that. Same thing with improving quality of life. Quality of life means different things for different people. People who live in a rural area may have chosen to live in that rural area because it is a rural area. Things that some people might like to see in a neighborhood, in a municipality, may not be things that they want to see necessarily in that rural environment. At the same time, we know that there are things that we put in 20, 30 years ago for quality of life, like soccer fields, baseball fields, that we don't really have a good measure on how many of those facilities are still in use, if there's been a change in our communities where they want something different now. And so that's another discussion we need to be having, both with the board as well as with our constituents. And then increasing economic development. Certainly, we want to make sure that our residents have good quality jobs available to them, and not just a job that they start in and have to go somewhere else to continue their career path, but where they might be able to make a career here in Doña County. For those of us that have had the benefit of being able to stay here in Doña County throughout our career, we understand that, but we don't have enough jobs right now. We know we lose a lot of people over time because they do have to go other places for career opportunities. But it's more than just career opportunities. It is those opportunities to develop job skills initially, the first job out of high school or out of college, where people can start that career path. And we've got some opportunities with economic development to grow affordable housing, to grow jobs, to reduce the amount of travel people have to engage in. Right now, if you are in the North Valley, up in the Salem and Garfield area, and you need groceries, it's a drive. Now, that doesn't mean we can expect a Walmart is gonna go in Salem. Just not gonna happen. But we have learned some things recently about what it does take to attract businesses. It's more than a 2-lane road. It's a 4-lane road. We can't expect a business to come in and go on septic. They need good wastewater systems. As we've heard really clearly over the last year, they want good assurances of quality drinking water. So we've got to make sure that's there. And not just for drinking, but also for firefighting. So that also is something we have to look at. And as this board is well aware, other things on economic development that really need to be in place include high-speed broadband, and that is faster than the service you get at home. That is for a commercial establishment, we're talking gigabit internet or better. So we've got some opportunities there. But then we also, as we're doing all of this, really need to look at maintenance of our existing facilities and infrastructure. This building is coming up on 20 years old. And we have not developed yet a plan for what we're gonna do to keep it going for the next 20 years. So facilities is working that plan right now. And it starts as simple as signage inside the building. How do we get people around in both English and Spanish to the offices that they're looking for? And then how do we maintain the roof? How do we maintain the exterior? How do we do cleaning? How do we look at energy efficiency and lighting? How do we look at whether or not we have adequate exits for the way that we have grown over the last 20 years, especially from the second floor? And that's just this building. Then we've got community centers that were put into modular buildings 10, 15 years ago, and that does not probably serve those communities well. It certainly doesn't say that we're there for the long haul for them and that we're going to be building services when it's still the same modular building decade plus later. So we need to be looking at how we do those. And really, we need to have a maintenance plan when we start constructing a building for the life of that building. So we know what to be expecting, and we can build that into future years' budget cycles so it's not a surprise to the board when facilities comes up and says we need $500,000 for the planned 5-year or 10-year maintenance of this facility. It's transparent and budgeted in advance. So here are our needs. We're going to need community engagement. When the strategic plan passed this past year by the board was in front of you, you commissioners noted that we didn't have much community input into that plan. It was rather limited to one area of the county, and that is not representative of the entire county. So we need to get out there in our communities, and we need to recognize that each community has its own flavor, and what happens in a neighboring community does not necessarily reflect what's happening in that community and what they want to see. So we need to find out at the community level, and that means people up in Oregon shouldn't be treated as if they live in Butterfield. They have their own needs, and we need to recognize that and ask each one of those communities what it is that they're looking for, and we need to make sure that we're not just trying to touch them once in one meeting that's held Monday through Friday during business hours, but that we're meeting them at the times that work for those people and multiple opportunities for engagement. So if this board is willing to go with us down this path, I'm envisioning we're going to need at least 40 to 80 meetings over the course of the next 6 months with the public to really make sure we are getting good representative input. And no, the commissioners, you do not have to be there for each of these. Staff will be out there doing the outreach. But we do need from you all direction on what we should be discussing with the residents based on what we're going to be discussing today. And we need you to tell us if you've got projects that you want us to look at as priorities, what those are, so that we can be looking into them. You know, it's one thing to say we want a service center for county services in the North Valley. It's much more important to tell us what services those are that you want us to provide at a service center. And these are not going to be easy answers that have a cookie cutter approach. If we take the example of recreational facilities, you can see there on the slide how many different things could be discussed at a recreational facility. Is it ball fields? If so, which sports? Is it courts? If so, which sports? Do we have fitness centers? Are they indoor or outdoor fitness centers? If we want playgrounds, what are the features in the playground? Are we designing for a pre-K? Or are we designing for something through elementary school? Do we have indoor multi-purpose spaces? And this is one that I'm really happy to report on. Our community centers now, some of our community centers are getting so much use. That's a great thing, but we're now getting conflicts. with some of the classes that we try to offer at the community centers because people are renting them out for events. That's a good thing. That does mean, though, that we probably need to look at where do we need multi-room spaces where we can have more than just one thing happening. Do we need to look at swimming pools? Some of you may recall we used to have some privately owned swimming pools out in the county where people could go and learn to swim and then recreate during the summers. We've lost that, and right now, one of the more popular places for people to go swimming is unfortunately in a river, which is not necessarily a safe place to learn to swim because of the undertow and the eddies and currents that are there. And this isn't just a child thing learning to swim. We've got adults that also could benefit from swim lessons, and that's something that the county could potentially take on, is actually having swim lessons for various age groups. About splash pads, that is actually one that, probably the one I've heard the most request from on the public. Some place where kids can go and cool off in the summertime. And fishing is another one. We had 2 key fishing places, and NMSU shut theirs down, drained the pond, and now we're down to Young Park. And again, if you are in Chaparral, there's no fishing hole nearby where kids can learn how to fish. Don't know if there's any interest in that in the Chaparral area, but those are things that we would have to ask. And then there are partnership opportunities, things where we may be able to partner with somebody else to operate potentially a health clinic on the property of a recreational facility or a food pantry, or we may provide parking for a park and ride and tie that into our transit system. We may provide space for a clothing center. We have that happening right now in one of our community buildings, and they provide free clothing to people in that area. But if we're providing clothing to them, to people who otherwise can't afford clothing, should we maybe also consider providing an opportunity for them to wash clothes? Because we don't have many laundromats in the outlying areas in our county. And so if they don't have laundry at their home, there may be a potential to the county invest in the equipment and the space and have somebody else run it for us at very low cost. Is there interest in a cafe? It's where people that are there for swimming, splash pads, or whatever else have an opportunity to get something to eat. Is there an opportunity for us to put in high-speed fiber, not just for our constituents, but also to serve as an internet hotel where multiple ISPs come together and tie in, which then also gives us as a county the ability to have multiple pathways to route our traffic if need be. And then, as I mentioned, county office service centers. Is this an opportunity to say, you know, it doesn't cost a whole lot more if we're building a recreational facility to add 2 offices or a larger lobby? If we're already putting in high-speed internet, maybe we put in something called interactive teller machines. The treasurer is really looking into these because not only can you pay bills from those, you can also push a button and talk live on video with somebody to ask questions, get answers, get directions, whatever else you might need. And then from the Office of Emergency Management standpoint, can we make these also disaster support spaces with very little additional effort so that when we do need cooling centers, warming centers, shelter spaces, we can take advantage of something that we've already built. So we're now going to get into some of the details on these, and we're going to start it off with a discussion on financing. We'll talk a little bit about county facilities. Roads, we're really going to be talking more about tomorrow during the regular BOCC meeting. So we're not going to get into that unless you have specific questions you'd like to ask on that. Public safety, we're going to focus mostly on fire this time around. DASO is right in the midst of strategic planning themselves. And then you all just last meeting approved starting the study of some of their facilities that will kind of guide where they're going. So they'll be coming back as you know, they start getting some of those plans solidified to talk about what they're seeing from their side. Recreational multipurpose facilities, you just saw a little bit on. If you want to talk more about those to give us direction, give us ideas on other things you'd like to see in one, that would be awesome. Communications, and then economic incentives for new businesses. Just want to say We have some opportunities. We have been talking with some representatives at the state level who are really anxious to have conversation about how we can have incentives. It is going to require some state law changes, some authorizations that the legislature now has to enact legislation that says it's not a violation of the anti-donation clause if we are giving a rebate to a new business that comes in. And rebates are really nice because it means they had to come in first. They're actually having to produce jobs in order to then qualify for the rebate. So it's not a, we're giving you free money up front and then they never come in. But there are a number of opportunities for incentives that I don't think we're going to quite get to today, but that's okay because this is going to be a long-term discussion on how we can really incentivize more businesses coming in. And one of those is going to be kind of pointing out that we do have some good tax rates in the unincorporated areas of the county. Most people are probably not aware our gross receipts tax is only 6.5% outside of the municipalities. We don't sell that to businesses as, hey, come in and then you can tell your customers shop at your place versus in a municipality. Most of them just expect that gross receipts taxes are a pass-through to their customers, and they don't really think about it as being a marketing opportunity. So it's things like that where we might have an opportunity with them to change their marketing and their narrative and encourage them to really locate in places where we want to see economic development. And that will also be something we will need your guidance and guidance from our residents out throughout the county as to where we should be looking at kind of hubs for economic development, since we do need to put in roads, wastewater, et cetera, in order to support economic opportunities. So with that, if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them right now. Otherwise, we will turn it over to our financial team to start getting into the weeds a little bit with you on, do we have money? Can we get money to actually make things happen? So, Mr. Chair, any questions?
Thank you for that, Mr. Lopez. I think that was a great kickoff. Commissioners, do we have any questions or thoughts so far?
I have one.
Yes, Commissioner Reynolds.
Sure. Yeah, I think I heard you on the page about our needs, talk about community engagement. Did I hear you say we need about 40 to 80 meetings? That's 40 to 80?
That is correct, sir.
Just wanted to make sure I heard it correctly.
I think in areas like Chaparral, we're going to need to have at least half a dozen just to give opportunities for people to engage. If we go up to Oregon, we're going to need to provide at least 2 opportunities for them to engage. And when you look at all of the communities we've got out there, it adds up to a pretty big number.
And Mr. Chair, I am County Manager. The other thing I think I heard you say is that we need to reach out to them in both English and language, and English and Spanish.
Yes, it will need to be both in English and in Spanish, and we need to provide online opportunities for people to provide feedback as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, wonderful. And any other questions or comments, board? Seeing none, we'll continue on. Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Lucio Luttrell, Budget and Research Officer for the county. Okay, so I will begin our financial information section. I only have a few slides for you, and then I'll turn it over to our financial advisor. I will begin with some information that you've already received at the May 14th preliminary budget approval meeting. I'm providing this information without updating it because we have our final budget approval in 2 weeks. So I didn't want to provide an estimate and then give you final figures as we close out the fiscal year. So with this, you will see that we are estimated to begin cash with $199 million, which would be the largest amount in county history. That includes $75 million in general fund, 99 in special revenue, capital projects, 17, debt service, 720,000, and so forth. If you look at our budgeted end cash, so that takes into account our revenues and expenditures we had budgeted within the preliminary approval, we would end at $119 million. So that shows a draw on our reserves of $80.5 million. Most of that has to do with our restricted funds and also some of the capital that was approved within the preliminary approval. And then the last column in the first table is our budgeted end cash after our reserve requirement. So we are required to maintain a 3/12 reserve requirement in general fund. So that's 3/12 of our total expenditure budget there, as well as a 1/12 reserve requirement within our road fund. And then the table on the right breaks it down by restriction type. So our unrestricted, designated, and restricted funds, you'll see that within our unrestricted, there's around 24 million budgeted and cash estimate, 35 for designated, and 34 million for restricted funds. And again, we will update this information at our final budget approval at the July 23rd meeting. Moving on to our bonding capacity, I'll be really brief as our financial advisor will be going over this in a little more depth. So with GO bonds, we have the capacity of 4% of the value of our taxable property within the county. So that means our limit is 224 million. And that is based on our most recent certified final valuations. The current outstanding GO bond debt we have is at 4 million. Within revenue bonds, there really isn't a capacity. The county pretty much pledges revenue as collateral. So if we are trying to take on new debt there, they would really evaluate our financial situation, look at our existing revenue sources and any potential new sources. And so I did have that second bullet point that says county can currently increase our GRT by 1/16 of 1% without voter approval. So that's limited by tax and rev, and that amounts to around 3.9 million. Anything above that would have to go to voters for approval. So with that, I will turn it over to our financial advisor. And if you could please pull up the debt overview presentation.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. I'm Chris Muirhead with the Modrell Sperling Law Firm. I'm actually your bond counsel. Mr. Williford is here from Hilltop Securities, is your financial advisor, your municipal advisor. I was just going to give you a quick overview of what our role is and kind of how this fits in with what the county manager said, and we can get into more specifics, and Mr. Williford can go through his presentation. So just to remind you, as bond counsel, what we do is we make sure that if the county is interested in borrowing money for these capital projects, that you stay within the statutory restrictions and requirements that are in place, of which there are several. There are constitutional parameters which you have to operate under. And then if it's tax exempt, which generally you do, there are federal Internal Revenue Code provisions and Security Exchange Commission provisions. And so our role is to make sure that you do that all consistent with all of those various requirements. And in particular, from a county commission, the importance of the Open Meetings Act requirements and making sure you're doing things with the proper notices and that the debt is incurred with proper public input and opportunities to discuss. So as we get through this and George goes through the presentation, in particular from a capital project standpoint, as you look forward and you think about these different capital projects, there are generally two primary ways you can finance those if you are looking to borrow money to pay for them. We've hit on those just now a little bit, which the general obligation bonds, which the county has one series outstanding. That one does require a vote of residents within the community to approve a dollar amount as well as projects that is paid from the ad valorem property taxes. And there's a separate debt service mill levy that's put on property taxes that pays that debt. Beyond that, if for whatever reason that property, you are really making a full faith and credit pledge, and so any revenues would be available to pay that. But generally, it works that mill levy on your property taxes is sufficient as set by DFA to make those payments. Again, the important distinction there is that it is subject to a voter approval, and the community has an opportunity to say yay or nay and do it that way. And it is generally for your most common governmental purpose type of projects, roads, streets, water, wastewater, whatever it might be. Those are the things that fall in there. To hit on the revenue bond side of it, that generally does not require voter approval. It requires just commission approval, subject to potentially a negative referendum if there is opposition to the project, and it would go to a vote. And that one is, you're paying it back with a specific pledge. So it's a limited special pledge. Hypothetically, you say a 0.25% of your gross receipts tax. That is all that's being pledged legally. That's the only lien that the bondholder or lender would have for repayment. And so it is not as broad as a general obligation. The constraints there aren't constitutional where they are in a general obligation. It's really you're constrained by how much money you have. I mean, it's basically like a home budget. Do you have enough to pay your bills as well as borrow money and pay your debt service on it? And so as Mr. Williford goes through this, we can talk about that in more detail. But our role is to make sure, again, that you're within your lane, state statute, state constitution, Federal Internal Revenue Service, and Securities Exchange Commission, depending on how you market the bonds. I'll have Mr. Williford come up and he can start on. I'm happy to answer any questions. I've been before you before. Again, and I can also talk about the Local Economic Development Act aspect of it, or economic development in particular, which is a different form of financing that generally doesn't involve governmental monies as a debt.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
I'm George Williford with Hilltop Securities, and we've had the privilege of serving the county as a municipal or financial advisor for nearly 20 years. And so it's good to be back. We've conducted some things and worked during COVID, long distance, but it's good to be back before the commission. I'd put together some information kind of blindly since I got word request to show up. So hopefully this isn't too much, hopefully it's not too elementary, and hopefully it's not redundant with anything that's been said before, so we can move through, and I'll try to be specific on part of it.
Mr. Chair, can I make a comment?
Yes, Mr. Reynolds.
Mr. Willard, thank you so much for your advice on the TID project that we worked on a couple of years ago with the city. I appreciate your feedback, I appreciated your input, and I found it very valuable in our negotiations on that TID project. So I just want to say thank you before we get started.
Well, thank you. Thank you. As Mr. Muirhead just said, the two primary means of direct financing by counties or financing county projects are the GO bonds, which of course require voter approval, and GRT. Again, does not require voter approval outright, but can be approved just by the commission. Currently, the county pledges 1/8 and the county equalization portion to secure the outstanding GRT bonds. And you'll see that quantified and detailed in a bit. With regard to debt and actually getting it out there, getting the money in hand, there are really two primary means of sale or issuing the debt. First is public sale or issuing in the public market. You can do that either through a competitive bidding process or a negotiated where you select the underwriter and then they go out and market on your behalf and come up with market level interest rates. That's really what the county has most commonly done. And when you go to the public market, that's where it necessitates a bond rating. And I'll show you in just a moment what the county's ratings are. The next method would be private placement. You can do that on a direct sale where maybe you've got a bank that is interested and willing to undertake financing of a county issue, and you might want to negotiate with them. The other would be where you actually solicit bids by commercial banks that may have interest, and then hopefully select what would be the lowest interest rate. So there are pros and cons with each. And then thirdly, the New Mexico Finance Authority, that's really a form of direct placement because you're just placing your debt issue with them. But they have their PPRF program, which is general and very advantageous to counties and other municipalities in the state, but they have other type programs that are more specialized, and the county itself has done financing through them for certain specific needs or specific programs. Currently, the county, as I said, is rated AA on the GO debt and AA+ on the GRT. which it's not necessarily unusual. It's all a factor of revenues, providing coverage, and that's the case here, that the GRT rating is actually higher than the GO. These were both upgraded last August when S&P Standard & Poor's undertook a review of the county's ratings. These are some comments that tied to the rating review, and it recognized the very strong and growing economy, both cases, the financial position of the county being improved, and on the GRT side, just with respect to the amount of debt and debt service you have, how large the revenue to support those are. With regard to general obligation bonds, the first part of that's really ties to what Mr. Muirhead had already gone over. Down at that bottom bullet point, and this kind of replicates what CO had said, at 4% of the $5.6 billion current assessed value, the legal capacity would be around $224 million. You have 4.1 outstanding, so that means that 220 would be the ultimate legal capacity. Now, from a practical standpoint and a credit standpoint, that's far in excess of really what could be considered. And I would say that from a realistic standpoint, it would need to be half that amount, or maybe even lower, around 100 plus million, and so on. And you'll see in a minute, that's really dictated by the levy rate impact and what is really acceptable from the commission standpoint, and more importantly, from the citizen standpoint, that they would agree to authorize, and so on. Again, the 4.1 million only has about 10 years to run. It pays off in fiscal year 34, September 1st of that year. This shows the debt service associated with that, around 490 to 500,000 per year, a relatively level. Calculation would say that the required levy would be about 9 cents per thousand of value, and that has been what the most recent levy, plus or minus, has been. This is just a graph of that. Really doesn't say much other than its level debt service out through that final payment. Then with respect to the gross receipts tax, gets a little more involved. And as you'll see, and as Chris said, the only pledge or security of GRT bonds are those specific pledged revenues. Again, the first 1/8 in the county equalization portion currently pledged. And there is senior lien debt and subordinate lien debt. The senior lien would have a priority or first claim on those revenues, and then the debt service or payments on the subordinate lien would be behind that. This is, as I said, the GRT pledged revenues. As they stand, you'll see over time they've actually grown. And so that 11.4 million, if you look at what I will show you in just a minute, the legal limit is that those have to provide at least 1.5 times coverage. What that means of annual debt service is that annual debt service conceivably could be as high as $7.6 million. Again, from a more practical and credit standpoint, the coverage needs to be 2 times or higher to have a good rating position and so on. And in that case, annual debt service would need to be around 5.7 or lower at a maximum. The thing about the GRT revenues that I've run into with most issuers is out of that 11.4, it's very likely that a good part of that money is already earmarked or used in operations for other purposes. So it's not a situation that you can just necessarily go out and, well, let's maximize how much we could issue as GRT, because those funds are being depended on otherwise. From a legal standpoint, this is the additional bonds test, or the requirement for issuance of any additional GRT debt. And so in order to consider it, the senior lien, you would have to have at least, as I said a moment ago, 1.5 times coverage of all senior lien debt service, existing plus plan, in order to be able to issue additional. The subordinate lien has that same, but it applies to aggregate senior and subordinate. So really, that's more limiting. It can limit your senior lien capacity by having additional subordinate lien. But again, the 1.5 is really generous with respect to what in reality could or should be done. This is the outstanding GRT bonds, $1,485,000 left on the Series 2012. Both of these were refunding issues of prior debt. The 2012 runs through 2028. The subordinate lien, $3.495 million of the Series 14, that runs through 2029. You'll see that in a moment. Then also, we weren't totally aware of this, other than maybe digging in the audit or finding it, but there are 2 NMFA loans, most recently the 4.3 energy savings loans that are also secured by the 1/8 GRT. So that would have some impact on the debt service coverage. Also, Chris would need to confirm, and we need to work, do those loans respect and abide by the covenants and provisions that are in the bond documents with regard to use of those revenues to secure additional debt. This is the annual debt service on the existing GRT, around $400,000 a year. Again, only runs for 4 more years. This is the subordinate, around $750,000 a year longer through 2029. This is the combination of those. So you can see the GRT with $11.4 million of annual revenues right now that are pledged is only supporting about $1,170,000 or so of annual debt service. This is again the graph of that. This is the NMFA loans, and apparently the 2020 was done taking into account the 2008, because if you look on the far right-hand side, the total and aggregate debt service with both loans is pretty equal year to year. It runs out through 2041. This is a combination of on the left-hand side, and this is wrong, I found out today, because it also lumps in the GO debt. So I'm having that revised, I'll send to you. But instead of $2 million with the combined NMFA and GRT loans, it's around $1.5 million a year through 2028, and then it drops to around $1.2 million, and then it's that $350,000 to $400,000 a year thereafter. But I'll get a corrected version of that. And then this information is probably what's more relevant to the commission, and I apologize for all the historical or updating data, but this is really my attempt to, without specific projects or anything being in mind, just try to show you what might be the impact and capacity of new debt issuance. First, on the GO side, I did this based on the additional levy rate that would be required for each of the issue sizes you see. And so, for example, a new issue at the very top of $3.5 million, structured on a 20-year level repayment, would require annual debt service of about $266,000 a year, and that would require an additional 5 cents per thousand levy rate. And as I said earlier, current rates around 9 cents. Back when the 2013 issue was done, and during that period, the levy rate was around 15 cents per thousand. So the first 2 numbers would really just take it back to maybe historically as high it's been, in that range. But you can work your way down, and see that right in the middle, the 25-cent additional levy would support about 17.5 million, about $1.3 million annual debt service. And these are all, as I said, structured level. We could, to mitigate some of the impact, if needed or desired, structure to wrap around the existing debt service that I said runs through a final 2033 payment, and that would help reduce some of the first several years' impact. This next page really just was an attempt to take it to, from those 5-cent incremental levy rate increases, say, what if you had GEO projects of 40 million, 50 million, 60 million, all the way up to 100 in total. And what you'll see on the left-hand side is the levy rate per thousand. Again, as it says, based on that 5.6 billion current assessed value, 20-year level repayment and 4.5% interest rate, you can see what those levy rate requirements might be on that left-hand side based on the annual debt service. And finally, with respect to gross receipts tax debt, again, what I did is just took in 10 million increments, 10 to 60 million, and calculated the required repayment on a level basis at 20-year, 4.5%, 25-year, 4.75%. And so you can see, and keep in mind, the pledged revenues right now around 11.5 million, annual debt service, not including the finance authority loans, around $1.17 million, and that drops off in 2028. You can see the additional debt service that would be required to be supported by gross receipts tax revenues. So again, that was very general, just working, like I said, kind of in round numbers or blind, not with respect to specific projects as to what the impact might be to finance either GEO or gross receipts tax debt. And I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you for this. I appreciate you joining us today and for this presentation. Commission, do we have any questions on what's being presented?
Mr. Chair, I have one question.
Yeah, Commissioner Reynolds.
On the last sheet, you showed that the interest rates are being 4.5% on the 20-year and 4.75 on the 25-year. Is that what the current rates are that we're looking at, or is this just an estimate that you would?
These are slightly higher than current interest rates. For example, we used on the GEO 4.5% as well. If the county were going into the market today with 20-year debt at the rating levels, it would be 4%, maybe a little less. Same thing with the ratings you have on the GRT. So these rates are around 50 basis points above current market.
Okay, if we needed $10 million, it would cost us, including principal and interest, $758 for 20-year payment and $683 for 25 is what I'm looking at?
Yes, sir, based on these rates, yes.
That covers the principal and interest is what I'm talking about. That's what I thought.
Yes, that's principal and interest level amortization.
All right, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Commissioner. Any other commissioner comments or questions? Seeing none, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate you. With that being said, we're going to move on to county facilities.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'd like to turn it over to Robert Herrera to talk a little bit about what he's envisioning of where we need to go. And just while he's coming up to the podium, just to make sure everybody's clear, when we're talking on the strategic investment, we're talking about facilities and capital expenditures, because you can't do salaries on GRT, bonding or off of a GEO bond. But if we do grow our facilities, we will obviously have that ongoing expense of additional positions to support those.
Of course.
So, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for that.
Good afternoon.
Welcome. Good afternoon.
Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Robert Herrera, Director of Facilities and Parks. I do have a presentation that I need put up. So while we're getting that done, I just wanted to take this opportunity, since we're talking about the future and future investments. I wanted to thank my staff for the great job they have done. Those of you know I've been out for a couple of weeks recovering from a knee surgery, and I wanted to just tell my staff how proud of them I am, and they just want to acknowledge the wonderful job they did while I was gone, because they are the future of the department. So I just wanted to say thank you. And while that presentation's coming up, sorry, okay. Well, this is kind of throwing a wrench in my presentation.
Is it that DAFR file? No, okay.
Hello, this is William Welsh. I don't have the presentation in the folder. I only see a few different ones, but I don't see facilities.
We'll take care of it, Billy. Carry on, Mr. Herrera. We'll visualize with you in spirit.
Okay, well, I don't have my slides in front of me, so I will try to shoot from the hip. So the presentation that I wanted to show is a perspective realignment of the Facilities and Parks Department and the Utilities Department. It's to take the opportunity to take advantage of, improve our processes and in both departments and increase the professionalism and the sophistication of the services that we provide. So the first thing I wanted to do was establish a mission and vision for the department. I don't have them in front of me to present, but I will definitely be giving those out to you. The mission is to formulate a goal for the department and what we envision to be. And the vision is to set a target of what we can achieve together. And this will set the foundation for what the department will become for the future and to manage all the initiatives that the interim county manager had presented, especially two key initiatives of improving quality of life and maintenance of existing facilities and infrastructure. So what I wanted to do was, first off, is align the department's identity. We are more than just facilities and parks. We have vector control services, we have project management services, we do recreational services. So, and then now, since I have been interim managing the utilities department, we offer utility services. So I wanted to kind of establish the new identity of the department and get back to what I consider our core services and our core responsibilities. And the service we provide to our internal and external customers. So I wanted to entertain a name change, which I will identify here in a little bit as we progress on the presentation. The transition. How did we get there? How do we get here? So we want to change from a proactive group to from a reactive group, to a proactive group. And identify things that are needed, like preventive maintenance plans, master plans, facility master plans, to help each department grow and meet their needs. We want to stay ahead of the curve and not just react to everything that's been going on. Like Mr. Lopez stated about this building is coming up to 25 years. How do we budget for the needs of maintaining this facility in the future? And we want to operate as one cross-functional unit. Right now we have, in both departments, we manage grants, we manage projects. So we want to be able to do that unilaterally instead of duplicating efforts. And then we want to be able to manage the investments of the county in a systematic approach using industry professionals, architects, engineers, construction professionals, to help ensure that these investments that the county has run smoothly. So here we go. Great. So the realignment. The realignment concepts. Establish a mission and vision. Update department identity to align with facilities management and core services. Again, also the name change. Transition from a reactive group to a proactive team. Operate as one cross-functional unit to utilize resources more efficiently. Properly manage capital projects and protect county's assets and investments. Manage facility operations using industry best practices, and develop long-term capital improvements and deferred maintenance strategies. We also like to build a talent pool to establish opportunities for succession. And finally, create a culture of sustainability within the organization. So the first thing was develop a mission. Our mission statement is to provide high-quality facilities management practices and support services for all Doña County stakeholders while delivering exceptional customer service. Our vision, we aspire to be the model department through the delivery of excellent service, high performance, and innovative solutions. Again, we want to focus on our core competencies. First being facilities maintenance, ground maintenance, building attendance services, project management, asset operation and management, wastewater utility service, vector control, sustainability, and recreation management. So how do we implement this? Well, the first thing we wanted to do was use benchmarking and develop standards. I like to use the Project Management Institute PMI standards to manage capital projects. I also look at the International Facilities Management Association for our benchmarking needs. I like to use the APA standards, Association of Physical Plant Administrators, and then the National Recreation and Parks Association standards. To meet our sustainability needs, we will look at the LEED Silver construction standards, and possibly even look at reducing our carbon footprint over a given number of years that the commission might deem reasonable. Another big one is recreation management. So we are spread over a vast, large area, and we want to use our software systems and innovative approaches to managing these facilities. We want to use our Placer software to identify which recreation areas are heavily used, which ones aren't so heavily used. Track attendance, track the usage of these facilities. Use electronic access to access these so people don't have to go out there and physically open these facilities. Restrooms can be locked via phone app. Climate controls can be used via phone app. We can have lights turned on and off. And then the Kaizen software, we'd like to use that to be able to manage the use of our facilities, the rental, people can get online just like when you want to get a hotel room. You get online, you look at it, look at the dates it's available, pay online, and look at photos, see what it has to offer. We can even utilize that for programs that we offer. You can register yourself for a program and get yourself involved in those.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I
Commissioner?
have a question with this on this slide. Do we have any LEED construction standard buildings already?
To my knowledge, we do not have any actually certified LEED buildings.
Okay.
The LEED Silver standard is fairly new, and we haven't actually had any certified LEED buildings.
Well, the LEED Silver standard is new, or just the LEED at all? Because the LEED standard's been around for a while.
Yes.
Okay,
but
it's the Silver standard that's new?
No, the LEED Silver initiative that we are going to start implementing. Our design standards that we are developing right now will model the LEED Silver construction standard so that all of our new renovations, all of our new facilities that are going to be constructed will meet this LEED Silver standard.
And do we have any desire to actually put that into our UDC code for other construction in the county?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Do we have any need to put something like a LEED Silver certification to any other standards of our UDC code for the county in order, in some way, to incent our developers to do that as well? Are you aware, are we thinking about that?
I have not had an opportunity to discuss that with Christina Ainsworth, who who developed the UDC. So that is something that I can collaborate with her on and probably get back.
But part of the reason I think it would be important to do that is because if we're going to be looking at buildings for our facilities to actually be LEED compliant, then I think we should have standards under the Unified Development Code to help us to understand and identify what those are. So we're looking for contractors, it'll be easy for them to identify what we're looking at versus what we've done in the past. And I think if we better understand it and publish it, then we'll have a better probability of meeting those standards reliably.
Absolutely, yes, and I can get with Ms. Ainsworth on
Thank you.
identifying that.
Mr. Chair, if I can just add real quick on that, and Robert, feel free to correct me because you know these well. The new EOC facility is being designed to a LEED Silver standard, but we made the cost decision not to pursue the certification because it adds 6 figures to the price tag. So the goal is being met without the certificate. And that'll be something that this board will need to guide us on for other facilities moving forward. Is that accurate, Robert?
Yes, that is correct. And the reference to the LEED Silver construction standards is we want to be able to have these facilities get as close to the LEED Silver construction standard without actually getting certified. Yes, because
See, I like that, and I think, thank you, Mr. County Manager. I like that because to meet the LEED standard obviously is a certifiable requirement. However, if we can just get close to that and understand what the LEED standard is and put it into our Unified Development Code as a standard that we can meet, then we don't have to worry so much about the certification and paying the extra 6 figures to do that. So I totally agree with that concept, and that we should actually understand that, put it in our UDC so we can meet it without having to actually pay for somebody to come in and certify it. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely, yes, thank you.
Mr. Chairman? Yes, Commissioner.
Just a quick question. When you talk at the very bottom, the last bullet, talk about Kaizen software, is that a specific name brand, or are you referring to lean manufacturing practices that you're trying to bring Kaizen into?
Actually, that is a name brand of a software that we identified that would meet our needs. We did look at several other vendors, and this is the one that we feel is the most user-friendly software that will also help not only in the recreation, but also the rentals, the lease agreements, everything that encompasses that program.
Thank you. I just wanted to understand, like I said, if you're using Kaizen as a lean manufacturing term or a specific brand. So thank you for the clarification.
Thank you. So as part of the implementation also, we want to use these and kind of benchmark ourselves as to where do we stand in comparison to these other industry standards, and then develop our standards to meet or exceed these other entities. So with that, as you know, it takes growth and it takes more bodies to help this come to fruition. So we would like to add more pieces to the puzzle and enhance our department. So with that, I envision us using the vacant utilities manager position as a deputy director for the department. This would help us maintain operational efficiency and assist in managing the diverse staff that we already have. Add another project manager. We do have almost 87 projects on the books, and we have more coming up this year, and we need more project managers to manage these projects. We need to increase our grounds and maintenance workers, the increased level of service to meet growing demand and to address the backlog of deferred maintenance that we have. A grants coordinator, currently we do not have one, and we manage an average of 22 capital projects per year, which is most in the organization. And capital planning coordinator to help facilitate the annual capital planning process through a systematic approach for all county departments. So we all can, have somebody help coordinate all these projects that are coming up so they build upon each other. Sustainability coordinator, is essential in implementing various sustainability practices and goals. Facilities recreation coordinator. So right now we do not have any facilities recreation coordinator, but we do have several ballparks, soccer fields. We do have the fairgrounds. All that is used for recreation, and we have nobody who actually coordinates that. Right now, it's kind of managed by two people in my department, and they kind of share that responsibility. But we need somebody who actually is in charge of that. Oh, okay. Thank you, Commissioner. And then a library services coordinator. We do have a library that we just constructed, but we do not have an actual librarian on staff to manage that operation.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner.
thank you. Mr. Red, I'd like to point out at this point, I do like the potential expanded growth of your department. I'm very acutely aware how short-staffed you are. I know we've been addressing concerns with the ballparks up on the East Mesa, the courthouse, and groundskeeping throughout at least my district. So I'm very grateful to your staff, but I know how short you are on personnel. So I understand completely and support most of these, not all of them, but most of these. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, with this realignment, this is what the potential org chart would look like. The positions in green, I would like to seek to get filled within the next 6 months to help alleviate some of that short staffing. And then the positions in gold, I'd like to see filled within the next 12 months so we can continue to meet the demands of the county organization. So in conclusion, this realignment will support the re-envisioned level of service and expanded services of the county organization through industry standards and best practices. It will ensure that each employee's skills and expertise are optimally utilized, resulting in improved job satisfaction and overall efficiency. And the appropriate staffing levels will assist in providing services meeting the expectations of internal and external customers through a planned, proactive approach. With that said, I would like to introduce you to the new proposed department. Welcome to Facilities and Services.
Nice, wonderful. Thank you for that. Facilities and Services. Commission, any questions for Mr. Herrera?
Mr. Chairman, just a quick question. As I'm looking through the agenda and I see recreational multipurpose facilities, I was trying to understand why we're separating county facilities with a separate line item rather than having them incorporated in the same discussion. I don't know if Mr. Lopez or Mr. Herrera can help.
Mr. Chair, simply because those, as I kind of pointed out, the complexity of that, what is a recreational facility, those will absolutely be county facilities, but we don't know what those will look like. So rather than muddying up what Mr. Herrera just presented with, what is that going to be? That's why I had those listed separately.
Okay. And I guess I'd be curious, because I know as we have this discussion, my hope is that when you are looking and developing, I appreciate the vision of where and why and how to properly manage, and especially with changing of the name of the department. I think I just want to understand, because I think one of the comments that you led with, Mr. Lopez, talked about the fact that we would need more staff. But I would challenge our staff and the department to understand, and I think you hit on it, are we utilizing the existing facilities the best that we can? And the reason I ask that is because, I know there are certain facilities that we have in the county that we only open one time a day for senior meals. And to me, those are lost opportunities. We have the infrastructure, we're paying for the facility, the maintenance, the utilities, and so on for the ongoing maintenance, but we only use it one time a day. And do our county residents use it? And so I'm wondering, as we, I guess, roll into the other discussion on recreational facilities, is that an opportunity for us to maybe look at how we consolidate and identify maybe better synergies with our existing facilities, with maybe new facilities, or growing existing facilities so that we can better utilize our staff and our resources. Because I think one of the things that we look at, right, is, and I think you kind of are one of those departments that support all of the other departments. I mean, we look at the facilities that you have with HHS, with DASA, with fire, et cetera. I mean, everybody will rely on you all, and I think that's where I'll be, like I said, I appreciate, like I said, I think where the vision is going, I like it. I just want to understand better as you continue to develop the vision and understand how we're using our facilities, how we can better and more efficiently use them. And maybe, like I said, it may be by either building new facilities or growing a facility, or, you know what I mean? I think that's where I'm excited for where we're going in this long-term vision with the discussion with our communities, but understanding, you know, what is it they want to see and how do we get better at doing that?
So that's why we wanted to implement the Placer software. And what that does is it tracks usage or location through your cell phone app, through cell phone apps. And we had a demonstration on that software, and we used one area in particular, the Dolores Wright Park. And I was surprised to know that last year over 65,000 people visited that park. Over 65,000 people. But then again, we have like the Betty McKnight, just for rentals for the month of July, we have 10 rentals there, just for that one facility. So using that software to track which are our high-use facilities, that will allow us to focus on where we can put our staff and how we can manage those facilities a lot better. So that's why we want to use this type of innovative software to help us manage better.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Mr. Herrera.
And I just wanted to take the opportunity to touch base on our short staffing and how you recognize that. But when I was doing the benchmarking with these other organizations, the PMI standard for project management is 3 to 7 projects depending on complexity. Right now, our project managers are managing 32 projects. Okay, 32 projects each, and the industry standard is 3 to 7. Our maintenance techs. Our maintenance techs you're supposed to have one maintenance tech for approximately 25,000 square feet of space. Right now we are doing 57,000 square feet per FTE. So way far behind the curve. Our grounds workers. The National Recreation and Parks Association standard is 17.9 acres per FTE. We are at 38.5. So there is definitely a need for us to staff up so we can provide that professional service to the community and that sophistication that they are looking for. So those are the types of things that I wanted to use to justify these changes. But
Wonderful, thank you.
the question.
Mr. Chair, if I can just point out one thing that Robert has been working on with his team, and that is a space utilization study of the government center. And that is, I think, kind of in line with Commissioner Sanchez's comment about what we've already got and are we using it well. So that study is already well underway for this building, and will certainly lend towards the discussion of, the DA's office was here for 5 years-ish when this building was built, and we're now 19 years later, and they're still here. And as we have needs, that is going to be one of those things that we need to look at, in addition to our support of district court. At the same time, Robert's already found some areas where we may have conference rooms because somebody needed a conference room, but it's only being used maybe an hour a week. And there's another conference room only being used 2 hours a week. And maybe we've got some opportunities there as well. So I think it's a big effort that really does, that's one of those intentional things that has to be done on a regular basis to make sure that we are right-sized and right-structured.
Yes, and we are through that study, so I hope to bring a preliminary report to the commission here very soon.
Wonderful, thank you, Mr. Herrera. Anything else, commissioners?
Yeah, if you could, I'd like 10 more square feet in my office, just 10 more.
We can expand out to the balcony.
10 feet, that's all I need.
Chair Hernandez, Commissioners, I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Okay, pointing out it is 4:19, so next up, we do have roads. Mr. Lopez?
So, Mr. Chair, as I mentioned earlier, Rhodes is going to be in front of you tomorrow at the regular meeting talking about the Safe Streets for All initiative. So there'll be some good discussion there. And as you know, Mo has done a really good job of already getting in front of a lot of things with the roads and engineering, including, they're already on Roads Initiative 3 for paving and maintenance of our road infrastructure. And just for anybody who's listening, who's not aware, Mo, please correct me if I'm wrong. We have 700 miles, or no, 700 paved roads and 700 not paved roads. So that is certainly something that, he's already got the projects underway to study those. But Mo, anything you'd like to say at this point?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. It's good seeing you all again. Yeah, as Mr. Lopez said, we have 1,400 miles of road in the county, and half of them are paved and half of them are not paved. And the best plan for the paved road is always at least put some kind of remedy on them every 7 to 10 years, which is a chip seal. And Federal Highway Administration finally admitted that about 20 years ago, they called the chip seal the workhorse of the road maintenance. And our guys have been doing a heck of a job on it. And actually this year we doubled our chip seal. So, and we're hoping we continue increasing the mileage on it. And there is a website called TRIP. I recommend most people go please do it. And that talks about the roadway conditions. And roadway conditions, we talk about the smoothness of the roadway, costing an average family $1,000 to $2,000 a year on a wear and tear on the vehicles. And that's not just a regular routine. We're talking about extra costs to the people of New Mexico. So our mission is really to try to do as smooth as possible, make the roads as smooth as possible. And when developers come to for a permit through our office, we make sure they all meet all the requirements of the UDC and also our roadway maintenance. So make sure it's the width, drainage. Drainage is the biggest problem. And that's something we have asked for years and years is people are asking the question of why do we need such a right-of-way, such a wide right-of-way? Well, the right-of-way is not just to say we are big government, it's really we need it because we got to put traffic on the road, and if traffic leaves the road, and which is part of the program we're going to talk about tomorrow, the highest number of fatalities, people running off the road. And when we have enough wide-away right-of-way, we can build better shoulders to keep people from what we call recoverable shoulders. It means when you leave the road, you can really safely recover back up. But a lot of fatalities because our shoulders are so narrow, because there is not enough right-of-way, and we don't have enough ditches for recovery, so people hit this fixed object and kill themselves, or the slopes are too steep, so the vehicle gets rolled over. So we're trying to reduce the fatalities, and that's something we're going to talk about tomorrow. On the SS4A program, we applied for funding. We were from only 3 entities in New Mexico got it, and I think a lot of them are applying again. We're going to apply again next year after the SS4A completed. We're going to apply for implementation program. And based on the SS4A, the results are coming out, the data we're going to share with you all tomorrow, you will see that a lot of our fatalities are on our state-owned roads. And we are not asking, well, it's a state-owned, let's not talk about it. We have to talk about it. You're elected official, you have more pull with an elected official in Santa Fe. Let's get funding for state roads so we can fix the state roads, reduce the fatalities. because we don't look at fatalities as numbers. As sometimes engineers think you might think engineers do, we don't. We look at them as these are fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, children of somebody that got killed on our roadway. And as engineers, we take it very personal, and we don't like to get anybody hurt on our road. So our mission is make sure the roads are safe, and we do a lot of traffic study. We just finished our pavement condition index. We are evaluating the data right now. And as soon as that one is completed, I'll bring you back the report of what the pavement condition index found. And based on the pavement condition index, we really plan our next 5-year program, which is, again, we presented to you what roads need to be fixed.
Wonderful.
Unfortunately, sometimes people think the pavement condition, the worse it is, that's going to be the highest. Actually, the roads that have the best pavement condition index are number one priority, because you want to keep the good road in a good condition before they deteriorate, that we cannot spend. I don't know how much time I have. I can talk
You're up
about
to
this
it,
for.
Mo. We'll get you tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay, we need to kind of move on swiftly, but thank you for
All
that.
right,
I
thank you.
appreciate you. Moving up, we do have public safety.
So, Mr. Chair, just like to point out, we do have the undersheriff here with us, but as I mentioned earlier, they are in the midst of strategic planning right
Okay.
now. But Undersheriff, is there anything you would like to say? All
Wonderful,
right.
thank you.
Very good. Then we're going to go turn it over to our fire chief, Chief Chan Cherry, and then after he is done, we'll turn it over to our flood commission.
And we will, at 4:45, we're still doing public comment, is that correct?
That is correct. So we may not get to items number 6, 7, 8, and 9 today, and that's okay. We can come back.
Okay, wonderful.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Shannon Cherry, Fire Chief, Doña County Fire Rescue. I did just get instructions to try to keep this moving because of our time crunch. So if there's an area that I kind of, I skip over in some of my slides and you want to circle back to it, please let me know. I did want to take this opportunity as we're discussing the 30-year future to bring forth the current status, because this plan really did start several years ago with this commission instituting the changes into the department and the consolidation that was done back in 2019. And so our 30-year vision really builds upon that. And this is a perfect opportunity for me to give the update on where we currently stand. So again, we still have our 4 districts. We have the staff stations, the volunteer stations. We're up to the 8 staff stations. The Safer Grant Academy is currently running. You'll see in September of this year, the first Safer station will open with a graduation. That'll be in La Mesa. And then the other Safer location was Fair Acres. That station is getting ready to go under construction to support the long-term operability of career staff being there 24/7. Just again, current staffing levels. This is another big piece of what was laid for a foundation for our future, and also is a big piece of our ISO. So with the FY25 positions that I know are still pending final approval, I included those. You'll see those in the org chart on the next slide as well. But this is now the layout of the department. It has grown many-fold over the last 3 years with your support, and our service to the community reflected. Again, this is the org chart with the pending approval of the FY25 positions. Those include the deputy chief fire marshal to help improve our code enforcement, which is a big key strategic piece for the 30-year growth of the department. Though we have one specific area that we function in code enforcement, it is very key in keeping the public safe and helping attract businesses and being ready for them. Another piece that we always look at is, and we're going to build upon this for our 30-year vision, is call growth. And so I love to include some historical data for comparison. But if you look at 2024 through June 30th, we're on pace for a 2% increase. And we're still averaging about 30 calls an hour. It's a little over to see that growth. Just to recap on FY23, this is how busy we've become. We're seeing 102 structure fires. This is another one of those ISO pieces. We're meeting 8.4 firefighters per response. which is better than ISO requires of us right now, which is 7, and it's heading towards where we want to do to bring our ISO rating down. Another piece that has really changed within our department over the last 3 years is our role in the EMS structure of Doña County. As you all know, the new AMR contract is in place. We are the contracted secondary level of service within Doña County. It's outlined within that contract. And so in '23, we placed our first 3 transport rescues in service in the county. Since then, 3 more were delivered at the end of last month, and an additional 3 will be here in August. That'll give us a total of 9 within the county that we can now provide that level of service. Since in 2024, we've provided 199 patient transports. 182 of those have been since March 1st when AMR took over, and we're now the secondary provider for patient transport. Another area we've committed into improving our EMS services within the county, I've reassigned personnel that currently exists so that we can staff the rescue at Station 1 in Doña 24/7 now. So there at that station now, I have an engine company and a rescue company in order to meet the needs that we're experiencing. We're also, to meet this growing demand, we've started training our own in-house instructors that can run EMT classes. They're in the middle of the second one that we have done right now, and a third is planned for the fall academy. We've increased our training hours in EMS, and in the FY25 budget, preliminary approval was given for a 40-hour battalion chief of EMS that will oversee this operation to improve our quality of service, to improve our QA/QI process, and to interface with hospitals and upgrade our services with how we can coordinate field care.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner.
quick question, Chief. How many vehicles are required now by the new AMR contract to be in the county?
Sure. So the AMR contract is broke up into 3 sections to make it clear. The north, it's required for them to staff 1 unit 24/7.
Correct.
In the south, which is kind of south of the city limits all the way to the El Paso, Mexico border, they staff 3 units that include Chaparral.
Okay.
Here in the central zone, it's 4.5 during peak hours, or 4.5 and off hours, and an additional interfacility units during peak hours.
So it's total of like 9.
Correct.
So-
And the central zone, just for time, I'll try to keep it quick. Think of it as 2 circles, 2 donuts, right? So the inner donut is the city limits. The outer donut is the suburban area that's Doña County, and those fall under response time criteria because that's where the highest density of population is, where the north and south are what's called a level of service criteria, and that's where the mandated staffing comes in.
So I guess my reason for asking that is it looks like you tell me if what I've heard you is correct. We're going to have roughly 9 transport
Rescues.
and by the end of this year?
Within the next 60 days.
Okay, so we could actually assist with that service at this time and help to improve our service to our
Correct.
citizens.
Yes, sir. That's exactly what we're doing. Another big project that's key for ISO and also for our future.
Chief, if I can, let's jump ahead here so we can get Floyd Commission a little bit of time. So if you want to talk about, your next 30 years, especially focus on facility needs.
Sure. So the things that drive the next 30 years for fire department, the drivers of change are always population increase, commercial growth, 911 call volume growth, and changing community needs. And what I mean by changing community needs is, does the community need increased EMS service? Do we need to establish community medicine service? Is there a need for technical rescue services, right, which include swiftwater, high-angle, low-angle rope rescue services? Is there a need for industrial rescue, ARF training? Those type of technical resources are going to be a big part of our conversation for the next 30 years. And code enforcement and, of course, water supply has been discussed in a couple of areas, but that's key for us in order to maintain the type of public safety that's needed for the community. To drive those real quick, and this is based on some pretty conservative numbers, if we just do a 1% call growth by volume, you see what our call numbers do over the next 30 years. And with that comes the increased need for staffing. Now, staffing is going to be driven by this. It's a little bit of which comes first. Do we wait for call volume to increase before we do staffing, or are we predictive and staffing ahead of the curve? And that's a balance that we're going to have to strike. The reason the population is important, it's a matrix that we've discussed before of trying to get, as long as we stay a combination apartment, the goal is one career firefighter per 1,000 residents. And so that helps us with what our staffing evaluation should be. One key piece for us to consider in that, though, is our geographical distancing adds some complexity to that smaller areas where this standard was developed, they didn't take into account 3,800 square miles. So that's another piece of our puzzle. Why we look in our strategic goals, the previous slide, we look at response time matrix to help us guide us as well, and how fast are we able to get to scenes. So to meet those demands, number of firefighters I just discussed, fire station growth in these areas is going to be key. So we see the largest growth and predicted growth currently in the Santa Teresa Industrial Park area, and then surrounding the suburban areas surrounding the city is where we're seeing the most growth. The stations in those areas, including Santa Teresa, Los Olturas, Talavera, the Fairacre station we're already working on, South Valley, those are the stations that as we see the community grow, we're gonna have to evaluate as if they continue to meet our need, or can they be renovated, as we have done in several areas, to meet our future need? Or is it time to evaluate where the population has grown, and is it time to establish a new station that better serves those communities? And so those are the pieces that we're gonna look into and as we move forward. The other piece of this is we support our field staff. We have to include the support of those staff as we grow. So administrative staff, inventory management, fleet maintenance, those are key pieces as we continue to meet our community's need with this growth. Currently, I have a fleet of 163 vehicles, and the majority of our work is done through contracted vendors. This would be an area where we could look to see, can we improve our efficiency, our cost efficiency, if we were able to bring some of that into house with emergency vehicle technician certified, maintenance. And then professional development and succession planning. Without either one of those, the 30-year plan really, we can build all the nice fire stations and we can buy all the nice fire trucks that we want. But we've been focusing heavily on professional development over the last 3 years, and we continue to do so because the next 30 years, we're gonna need leaders for the community. There was a lot more in there, but thank you, County Manager, for speeding me up.
Thanks, Chief. Mr. Chair, if I can, this is one of those areas where we have some immediate opportunities based on the finance discussion you heard earlier. The fire excise tax, the chief is very well aware, is there, and that can count as a GRT bondable revenue source. So using the numbers earlier, if our fire chief says, I'd really like to get a jump on renovating some of these fire stations that you just mentioned, building a new training center, whatever that might be, if he says, I need $30 million, based on the numbers that were provided earlier, over a 25-year loan at 4.75% interest, that's just over $2 million a year, and the chief has that in the fire excise tax. And that would not even exhaust his amount in the fire excise tax. Chief, anything you want to say on that?
That's a great option for us, Mr. Chair, Mr. County Manager. So we can move forward with those ideas. Those would be great discussions for us. One of the slides we did skip over was the facilities work that we have done over the last 3 years. I'm trying to remember, but I think we've done 13 either renovations or major projects in the last 3 years, and we currently have 5 underway, and that's excluding the brand new station in Anthony. So this facilities project really did get kicked off, again, 3 years ago when 3 to 4 years ago when the commission outlined the change in the department. But the bonding would be an ideal way to move forward with some of our other projects.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, welcome.
So I promise I will be very brief.
Wonderful, thank you.
Try to get us back on track. So essentially, the Flood Commission has been planning for years. We have long-term plans. We've got master drainage plans that we've developed for years. And so I'll give you a quick overview of where we are, and this will get us probably through this slide, and we're almost done. So we already have 14 master drainage master plans throughout the county. It's identified over 122 capital projects, which some of those are currently underway, totaling over $375 million, and that's at current prices. So we have a long-term plan for almost all the communities out there already, and we're already working on projects. So you can see we currently have 6 projects have been completed in the last few years since 2021. Excuse me. 5 projects currently in construction, 12 more in design, and 6 projects are in the planning stages. These are all based on grants and how the fundings are coming in. And so we're moving through these drainage master plans based on priorities of the greatest need. And so not to hurt Robert's triumph of having so many grants, but we have currently 35 grants with over $50 million worth of projects that we're working on. So we have a lot that we're doing. These drainage master plans will be reviewed as they get older. We just finished an upgrade for the one in Chaparral, and we'll be doing other ones, starting with the East Mesa one, which is being worked on right now. And so we'll work through all of these as we go. And we'll also be evaluating new needs as they come up. As an example, when the flood down in the south part of the county happened, there was a private dam that breached. We thought it would be a very good idea for us to do a drainage master plan for that area so we could see if there's a way to help that area. And so we've already completed that study, and we know what those are. That's not even included in our list here. In addition to all of those things, we're also working in the upper watershed above these dams and ponding areas in order to improve the sustainability of the whole area so that we don't have erosion and we get more water capture in the watersheds and with groundwater recharge. And we're even working with some of the allottees in BLM land in order to help them with their grazing requirements so that they don't overgraze areas and cause more runoff. So we have a lot of initiatives that we're working on. These are long-term goals that take a lot of time to see fruition. And with that, I'm not going to go through all the other issues that we're working on. We are expanding the department. We are planning to build a new facility for some more of our maintenance staff. As we build all these new structures, we need a larger staff to operate and maintain them. And so that's part of it. We also have initiatives to look at some of these dams that are so old that they're not functioning like they're supposed to anymore. And so we have a lot of things that we're working on. And with that, I'll stand for questions. I don't have a whole lot else to go on.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Commissioners, any questions?
Mr. Chair, if I can highlight one thing that was on John's slide that I think is really important for the board to keep in mind. Historically, throughout Doña County, when there was a flood issue, people built dams, they built up. And that is the most difficult thing to maintain and if it's built correctly, it's sending the water in a controlled manner downstream, but it still goes downstream. The concept of digging down and putting that water to beneficial use in recharging our aquifers is something that not only benefits us from a flood control standpoint, but also from a sustainability standpoint of our domestic water supply. John, you want to highlight that in the next 3 minutes that we still got on the clock?
Sure. So we're actually working on several projects. Our Gardner Dam project was actually the first one that has a below grade area where water will sit and soak into the ground. Other ones that we're looking at are going to be doing the same thing. But it's a general practice that it's a little bit of a tough practice because we're supposed to get water rights to do that. And of course, that gets real expensive. But there's been a big push by the state engineer's office in order to start making these things happen because they see how sustainability is going to be a huge thing. The other part of that is to also take water that is captured behind these dams and find a way to use it in a beneficial way. And so there are currently studies that are happening that are looking how to get that water to a place where it can be used. So a good example would be if we were to take the water out of one of our dams and then get it into the irrigation system where it could be used someplace else. So that's actually a doable thing because most of our infrastructure is outside the valley and it has to cross those structures anyways to get to wherever it's going. So that's something that we've been in communications with EBID for quite some time on, and we're working to look at those projects currently. Good? Any other questions?
Seeing none. No, thank you for that.
Mhm.
Okay, we do right on the money too. Thank you. It is 4:45 and we will have any public comment that wants to address the board about any ideas that they've heard today or any of the presentations. I will open up for that public comment. We do have the book that Brandy is putting out. If you will please sign in and address the commission. I am seeing none, which means that I don't know if we should go on to number 6 really quick for 15 minutes.
Certainly, I think that'd be a good idea, and I think we should also, Mr. Chair, ask if any items we don't get today, if the board members would like to hold another work session or just bring these back one at a time in future BOCC meetings, so we don't have to schedule a special work session. But then it would be in manageable chunks also, and we won't be taxing anybody's schedule.
That's up to the board. I am amenable either way. I think
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Sanchez, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would appreciate, I think if we do that, I'm open either way, whether we want to have another work session or if we find light meetings where we can fill, that'd be great. I guess what my hope was for this meeting was trying to identify the process that we were going to be moving forward with ICIP. So I don't know, and maybe I'm just not seeing the abstractness come together, but that's what I was hoping for us to decide, was having a better understanding as we move forward, as we just submitted our last ICIP, moving into next year's ICIP, how did we develop that process to engage the public, to make sure that we're hearing those needs that were brought up and brought in, so that way they feed into what Mr. Herrera was saying, what the fire chief was saying, and et cetera, right? I think that's where I'm a little confused, because I know we're getting the vision from the departments, but I also want to understand the process that we're going to be working to engage the public, because I think that's going to be an important piece as we move forward. And as they start seeing these ICIP lists next, I guess if we approve, I guess it would be July of next year, that they have we have a very public list. They know what they are that we're going to be requesting from our legislators. So I don't know. I guess that's my question is, what is the next plan to develop that process?
Mr. Chair and Commissioner Sanchez, that is almost a perfect segue to number 6, and that is exactly why that was kind of separated out, because it's the first real discussion point of where do we go with ICIP. You've heard some on the roads, and we've got more discussions to come up on that. Public safety, we've got to find out what the people need or expect on increasing public safety that we can build an ICIP, because you're right. We talked about the other financing mechanisms, but we did not talk about ICIP as a funding mechanism for all of these strategic investments. And so those community meetings I mentioned earlier will be absolutely, that is where we are going to be getting that public input. And when we talk about the potential for recreation and multipurpose facilities, that is what we need the guidance from you all as to, do we want to look at, should we consolidate centers? Should we build a fewer but more robust facilities? How do you want us to message this to the public as we start going out and getting that input so we can bring you back the information you need to make those decisions for ICIP and strategic investments?
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate you outlining the fact that ICIP is very specific versus looking at what we can do to bond and finance ourselves. So I appreciate that. I just want to make sure, like I said, I think if, as we move forward, I just want to make sure that we are engaging the public and understanding, so that way when we're building any new facilities or looking, and like I said, I think the fine line, or I guess say the balancing act here is trying to understand how we build within the strategic plan we just approved, but then again, you know, look at how do we grow in the future. So I think it's like, how do we not, I don't want to throw the strategic plan out, but I also want to understand how can we augment or work with that, or maybe pivot a little bit from it, because that's what we're learning as we're running through this strategic plan, is maybe there's opportunity for some changes here. So thank you, Mr. Lopez. Wonderful. Commissioner Chaparro.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Commissioner Sanchez. I was a little unsure of how we were proceeding today, but may I suggest, I like the forum. I like a late forum because it allows the public some input, but I might suggest maybe some late evening forums or weekend forums to allow more public engagement. I think it's very difficult for some people to show up during the day and have any comments to share with the commission. So that's my suggestion, either late evenings or weekends where we know the members of the public will be attending, instead of just maybe listening in on Zoom, and can engage and can give us the input that we need. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. And I agree with both of my fellow commissioners on that. I appreciate the work that was put into this. Something that I kind of need to see a little bit differently is maybe a little more tie-in with the strategic plan and what we're going through. I thought that this was more about financing, bonding, what we can accomplish, capital expenses. I was really surprised to see a lot of the personnel conversations coming up today. So that was maybe a difference that I had on expectations, but I think moving forward, that's something that I would really like to see is, you know, projects that we can get behind, where we want to go. I thought it was going to be more related to the bonding capacity. It was good to hear about the chiefs and the fire excise task and the bonding capacity there. I just wanted to see a little bit more of that. So maybe moving on, we can kind of tie that in with the late meetings, with more of that public input to kind of get the ICIP list cleaned up more, so get a lot of that input on how maybe others want to see things ranked, and kind of moving forward from that would be just an idea that I had. Commissioner Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Commissioner Chaparro that we should have more evening meetings, weekend meetings, and make them more accessible to the public so that we can actually meet them where they are. I also like the forum providing us with a consistent messaging strategy, meaning that everyone coming up and talking about what we're trying to accomplish, we're all talking about the same thing and meeting strategic requirements for our plan from their department, and then having more interaction with them. I think the time we had this time was a little short for each one of them. I think we should expand that to give them at least a half an hour each if they need it, so we can actually have some interaction and also bring the public in each one of the sessions individually. So I think the format of this is kind of what we needed, but I think it needs to be a little more expanded, a little more available, and a little more open to the public. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I think those are fantastic comments, and I am actually quite pleased to hear that there is interest in doing some evening or weekend sessions. The style of those, I'd like to ask the board while you're all here, Would you like to do something more in terms of a chalet where we're, getting people's ideas, putting them up on paper from the general public? Or would you like us to do community meetings first to narrow the topics down and then do those?
It's a good idea. Yeah.
Community meetings first. That's my opinion.
And I'm open. I think one of the things that I really liked, and I know Commissioner Chaparro wasn't able to join that back in November when we talked about our strategic plan. You were sick, so you had to participate remotely. But I think was, as the chairman and I were here, we had different tables set up, and so that way we could rotate with the public, have engagement. I think like having those type of, I appreciate the presentations and being up on the dais. I think having an engagement with the public and hearing directly, so we're not up here and there's that. I think I'm open to it, and I appreciate. I think as Commissioner Chaparro said, and as well as the chairman, having those more meetings would be good. So thank you for that, Mr. Lopez. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And just to confirm, for those, we would not need a quorum, correct?
That is correct. Because it would just be like little listening sessions / presentations. The board is not taking action, so there would not be a need for a quorum.
That does make it easier to schedule.
Yes,
Chair.
it does.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
first thing, I'd like to say thank you to all the people who presented today and all the information you provided, and also for the public that have actually attended to help us kick off this inaugural meeting for our planning sessions. So thank you all very much.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone. Okay, the time is 4:56, and we are adjourned from this work session.